Some say our teenagers are just going up in smoke, going to pot over marijuana. Listen to this. From 1994 to 1995, the use of marijuana among teenagers rose 37%. Well, joining us now with some practical advice on how parents should talk with their teenagers, their children now, about drugs is clinical psychologist Dr. Pt.5. He is the director of adolescence programs with Phoenix House here in New York City. And I'd also like you to meet Dr. Lynn Zimmer. She is a sociologist and co-author of a book to be published next month. It's called Marijuana Myths, Marijuana Facts. Welcome, folks. Nice to have you here. Peter, you say that most parents, especially baby boomer parents, are suffering from a little mixture of guilt and resolve in all of this. Our kids are saying, hey, Mom, you got high. Why can't I? What's going on here from your perspective?
I think one of the struggles that we're seeing today is that most kids who are abusing marijuana aren't really interested in stopping. And often parents find themselves in a tough position, particularly when they have a past history or current history, for sure, of drug usage. What's critical from our vantage point, what we see at Phoenix House, is for parents to be very clear and strong of their opinion that drug use is bad. Whatever they experience, they have to separate their own experience from the experience of the child in today's world.
Peter, isn't this generation going through a whole lot of different stuff, even with marijuana, than previous generations did? What's the big difference that they're having to cope with?
Well, for one thing, I think it's critical to correct a misconception that all too many people have, that marijuana is a benign drug. At Phoenix House, we treat hundreds of kids across the country. The majority of kids in intensive treatment at Phoenix, their primary drug of abuse is marijuana.
Well, look at Jeff, who says he doesn't do anything but marijuana, but my goodness, the kid admits he smokes more than 15 joints a day, and his mom is just worried sick. What do you say at Phoenix House to a family like this?
Well, for one thing, the drug use itself is but one issue. We look at the entire lifestyle the kid's leading, which was really brought up earlier. Is a child going to school regularly? Is a child succeeding? Is a child feeling good about him or herself? Is a child becoming someone and feeling good about who that child's becoming? The drug use, from our perspective, is a symptom. It's a symptom of underlying disorder, underlying troubles, family conflicts, so forth. No one's necessary to blame, but parents, with perhaps some help, have to try to take a strong stance, not ask a kid if they want help necessarily. Of all the kids who we see in treatment, how many do you think enter treatment, come into our doors saying, please help me?
Right. Ones that leave.
Very, very, very few. Most kids are forced by parents, by the criminal justice system, by doctors, etc. And it's a very important point here to make.
Well, I know that Kawita, I know you've gotten to a point where you're even thinking about turning your son in. We'll talk about that. And also Lynn says she's got some myths and some facts about marijuana that she'd like to break down to us, and also some 5 warning signs to look out for just in case your child is getting high. We'll be right back. Lynn, I'm going to ask you. You are here to tell us about the facts and the myths of marijuana use. Does it make you hostile? Does it change your mood? What are some of the biggest myths? And answer that first of all.
Yeah, well, there's never been any evidence that marijuana has made people aggressive. In fact, all of the evidence is the opposite, that it tends to make people calmer. And of course, some people like to use it for that reason. I mean, what we see here, I think today are, especially these 2 young boys who are really using too much marijuana. I think everybody agrees with that. In fact, parents don't want their teenagers to use any marijuana at all, and there's pretty much agreement around the country about that. But demonizing marijuana as being sort of the dominant problem of the society, I think, is not getting us anywhere, because, as you said, kids are using more marijuana. We have to take that seriously. Most of them aren't getting into trouble.
Biggest myths about marijuana for those who are demonizing it. They need to know what, and what.
Well, I guess the gateway myth is maybe the most important one to parents. Of course, if you start with people who have used multiple drugs, almost all of them have used marijuana as well, because marijuana marijuana is the most widely available and most popular of the illegal drugs. But the large majority of people who use marijuana don't ever go on to use other drugs. In fact, the large majority of people who try marijuana don't go on to become regular marijuana users.
Peter, I see you're shaking your head there.
That may in fact be correct. The problem, though, with this argument is that we can't predict which 10-year-old, which 11-year-old, which 12-year-old is going to be the serious drug abuser.
What about, one of the things that we fear is that marijuana is going to kill the brain cells, that they won't be productive, that this is something that's going to hurt their learning ability, their productivity.
Yeah.
You say what?
Well, I mean, using marijuana in school is a bad idea for a lot of reasons, and I think it is difficult for kids to learn new things under the influence of marijuana. But there's no evidence that marijuana causes any kind of permanent damage to the brain.
Is it worse for your lungs than smoking cigarettes?
Well, it's all smoking is bad, but it depends on the volume that you smoke. So it's about equal in terms of its potential harm to the lungs. Most people who smoke marijuana smoke so much less than cigarette smokers that it's not a real problem. Jeff, 15 cigarettes a day, marijuana cigarettes, that's too much, way too much.
Peter, George, let me ask you this. Parents who are going to fear that their kids are going to ask them about their own drug use, what responsibility, when you find yourself in a situation like this and the kids are going, Ma, you did it, now I'm doing it, Mom's saying I'm worried to death, I don't want you to do what I did. How are they to handle this situation?
You take first crack.
Well, I think first and foremost, a parent should be honest. That doesn't necessarily mean that a parent needs to tell a child absolutely everything of their past life and everything they've done. But a parent shouldn't lie. A parent should be honest, but a parent needs to differentiate between when they used the world as it was then and the world today. I think most of us would agree the world today is a far more dangerous place. We have AIDS, we have
How does that relate to
teenage
weed?
pregnancy, we have teenage violence, all related to early drug use.
George, what is a mother to do in a situation like this? Number one, I would say get some help.
Correct, but I'd like to also add to the fact that today's pot is laced with a lot more stuff than what we used to get in the 60s and 70s. So a lot of other chemicals that go into play.
I want to say this. I understand where she's coming from, and she's got a lot of reason on her side, but she says that it only works for us because we lived in a controlled environment. I'd like to point out that we, as parents, controlled that environment, and that is why it worked. We controlled it.
Your whole neighborhood helped to control the environment your child was in.
And
that is not the truth in New York City or where the children come from.
You want to know what kids do drugs?
Listen, we only have a few minutes.
Buy it.
You know what is interesting? This show could go on for another hour, which says that there's something about this show that's affecting a lot of people. Excuse me, Martin. I think what's real important is that I know that Luann came here. Excuse me, please. Excuse me. Can I have my show back?
We love you.
I know that Luann came here because she's concerned about help. I'm not sure if that's something that Cueta wants to get involved in as well, but I know that you came here with hands offered for any help that our families might need.
I'm willing to extend a 5-day retreat for Jeff to come and kind of get refocused on his life and take the opportunity. It's going to take honesty, it's going to take commitment on his part to step up. But if he does that, I assure you we're going to give him all the support we can to get him started over. But he has to want that for himself as much as his mother does. She's done all she can do. He knows that he's abusing the drug. He needs to go ahead and step to the next level and say, I'm willing to at least look at the possibility of what a clean life might offer me versus what I've been experiencing. This is not fun for him. So he needs to experience
And the thing good,
something.
too, about a retreat, Jeff, is you get to meet a whole lot of other folks who are doing the same things that you're doing, including trying to redirect where they see their lives going. You think you're up for it?
I don't know what is it. They're gonna lock me up in a
They're not going to lock you up. It's a retreat.
We're going
It's a
to
place
that.
it's a place to go and sit down and think and talk about things that are important to you.
What, I gotta go to a place for 5 days?
Hey, listen, if you're willing to try anything at least once, try a retreat. Okay? All right? It's not a lockup. Well, we're going to try to talk you into it. It's up to you, Jeff. You've got to want to do it. Martin, you're welcome to go too if you'd like.
Where is he? I want to know where.